Good morning. I wanted to show you how to create a gravity forms form and then add it to a page. What you'll do is you'll start by going to your dashboard for your website. And please excuse the slow loading on my not so great internet. And the next thing you'll want to do is mouse down here till you see this forms right here. And you'll go new form. So we have selected the new form page. It'll let you choose some templates. I am going to go ahead and start with a simple contact form template just to help you just use this template. So we're going to ask you what is the title of your form. And we'll just say this is the contact form 2, and you can describe the form as well. This information will go on the form if you toggle the appropriate toggles. So call this the contact form for training. I'm going to use this template to get started. And then once we get there, I just want to point out a few of the features and functions that are available in Gravity Forms. So this form has a name, an email, and comments. And if that's all you need, which is really what you need for a lot of different uses, then you would be done. And it's really that simple, or almost done. So what you can do is you can click on any of these elements and it will give you ways to change. You don't want this to be name, you want it to say first and last name or preferred name or whatever you would like that to be. And you can use all of the settings down here to change those. This is an important button, this rule that says I do not want this people to be able to leave this form without filling this out. So this is setting it to required. So they have to fill this out before they submit the form. And then the duplicate says that if you don't want somebody to be able to fill this form out 15 times, you can say no duplicates. So it'll look at the database of people who have filled out the form and restrict it and not allow it to do that. Also change the way the forms look. So you want to, let's go back up here to first and last name. So if you want to put a placeholder in the actual box, you can go first. And you can see that right now it's prompting them, giving them an example of what that name would look like. There's a lot of other settings in here. You can hide the settings. You can say where you want this description. So you can say, oh, I'd rather have it below, or these different options are. Lots of settings. If you need to add more fields, let's say you needed it to add a date field. So you would go over here to count fields, and you can, if you're not sure what the name of the control that you need is, you can search for it here. So I need a calendar, but I'm not sure what calendar. That didn't get it. Maybe date. So I need a date field. Just drag that over and place it where you want. Now, one thing to note when you are adding controls to the form is that you can set it up in columns. So if I want it to be, I want like 2 date fields in a row, then I can do this and it'll put it in 2 columns. And then if I wanted 2 dates and a time, I could put it in 3 columns. That's a pretty cool feature that they didn't have 5 years ago, but it does give you a lot of leeway as far as how your forms are set up. Other things that you might need to do, this is a cool one because it adds a checkbox so that somebody would need to agree to a privacy policy or agree to some other information that you fill out. If you look, if you go to general, you can change what the label is. It doesn't have to be consent. It could say agreement. And then instead of saying I agree to the privacy policy, you could have a lot more detail in here. You could put you can put a lot of content there if you want to. You can also say it's required. They have to fill this out if they want that information. So save this form. And so this contact form too. So now the next step is making sure this form gets to the appropriate people. So what you would need to do then is go to the settings. And here we have the form settings, which are just general settings for the form. They include things like title of your form, what labels are placed throughout the form. This lets you do complicated multi-page forms. It'll let you, if you click this, then they could save the form and come back to it. One thing I always like to do on my forms is enable the anti-spam honeypot. This will slow bots down if they are if there's malicious behavior going on. That honeypot will slow forms down. This confirmation, oh wait, it's going to want me to save that. Always save. So I'm going to save that. And then if you go to the confirmations, this will show you the text that will show up when somebody submits the form. When this form is submitted, we just say, thank you for contacting us. We'll get in touch with you shortly. Sometimes you want to show other information on the screen, or you want to have it go to, instead of just showing text on the page where the form was, you want it to go to a different page. So maybe they're signing up for a camp during the summer, and after they submit this form, you don't want to just have text here. You want it to go to an entire page. So maybe there's a packing list. So you would direct them to the packing list page. Then we have the notifications. I'm not going to save this. I'll go back to text. Cancel. The next thing that is important is the notifications. And there's a user notification. So this is an email that would be sent to the user. And this is an email that would be sent to an administrator. And you can add multiple notifications. So like if this was a camp sign up form and you needed this to go to 5 different people and have 5 different messages, you could keep adding notifications. This user notification, let's take a look at how these work. So these notifications they have a send to field, and you can choose fields from the form. So our form had an email field, so we want it to send to the email that the person who filled out the form was sending it from. You can say this is from a certain person, like Kokomo Worship Center. This form, this from email form, this would be the form that the email field. Okay, let me start. This field tells us which email on the website the form is being sent to. I use WP Mail SMTP and force this to be the official email for the website. That is the best path for deliverability. So on my sites, we don't have to change this field. If this needs to be, like if you're sending it to a customer and they need to reply to a certain person, it needs to go to, this is that field where you would do this. If you want to blind copy these, sometimes I do this if I'm not sure people are getting their emails. I'll put a blind copy and put my email in here, or whatever one you need. And then this is just the text. These little names or characters in the brackets are form fields, and if you need to use those, it's always these double brackets here. So like if we wanted the consent field in there, we would do that, and it would put in that information that was on the form. So that's the email that's being sent to the customer. And then there's another email that goes to the administrator, and it is basically set up the same way. So you go to the admin email, and you can fill out who does this go to. A lot of times this, I don't send it. This is when you see this admin email, that means it's sending it to the admin email of the website. So typically I would go in here and I would put, I'm just going to put me, but I would put the person who on your staff who receives emails, circlecitywebdesign.com. That's who would go here, and you can use commas and add additional people. On these, I like to use some of these fields, so I might say this email is from this is the person that filled out the form. Again, we don't worry too much about this because we use the WP Mail SMTP to force that information, so it's always correct. And this is nice. You can change the subject so that if you get emails from several forms, you can change it so that it sorts it into the place you want it to go. So it might be like camp sign up and then the person's name. So we've got that's their first name, and then there's your last name. So that way when this arrives at your mailbox, you'll know right away what this is. So those are the typical things we do. We've created the form, we've set up how it will be delivered, and then the last thing we need to do is add this form to a new page on your website. So I will show you how to do that in just a minute. Okay, so then the last thing to do is show you how to add this to a page on your website. So we're going to go new, we're going to make a new page. And we're going to call this page Camp Sign Up. And we're just going to go ahead and publish this. I'm doing this fast so it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. And we're going to edit it with Elementor, and it'll open our new page. Please excuse the greyhounds in the background. They have a lot to say. And also excuse my slow internet. Okay, so now we have our page. I always go click over here and say to hide the title because I don't need the title. Then I'm just going to add a box, a container. So we have our container. Then we come over here and we add an element, and we're going to type in Gravity Form Styler. This is the one I prefer. This is an ultimate add-ons for Elementor, and I'll also show you how to do this with shortcode in case you don't have that plugin. So we're going to select the form we want, and this is our camp form, right? And it's going to not show us a whole bunch until we preview it, but there's a lot of settings here. How do we want to do we want to allow Ajax form submission? I usually leave that as it is. If you want to change how some of the form fields look, like you'd rather have the underline look, see how that took off the top? There's a box, an underline, how that took off the top line. You can change background colors for the fields, like if you want them all to be blue. There's just a plethora of, I want rounded corners. There's a plethora of different options here for your forms. I am going to put a little padding on this. Make this a little narrower. You can't really tell, but just because the screen I'm on is little and I want it to. Okay, so then we're just going to publish this and view the page. There we have a form.